In this video, we're going to look at upgrading to the latest version of React, and some specific things we'll get into is not only will we update to the latest version of React, we'll also upgrade Bootstrap to the latest version. But why go to the latest versions? What does it give us? Here's some of the things that are new since React 16. The first is React.fragment. And you should be familiar with React by now. You probably remember that in React render method, it requires that you send back a single element. Before React 16, that single element was a div or a span. Now, if you don't want something taking up room in your DOM and actually just adding elements randomly to the DOM, you can use React.fragment as that single element, and it will return something that doesn't actually take up room in your DOM. So it can speed things up and make it easier for you to work with. We also added error boundaries, which basically is a try-catch in your JSX. It's kind of like having a try-catch in your HTML, but it is in JSX. And it comes with component did catch. Now, you're probably familiar with some of the other lifecycle methods like component will update, render, things like that. Component did catch is a new method that fires off when there's an error that was caught in the new try-catch method, and you can use that to set an error state and display an error message in your application. You're also able now to cancel set state by simply returning null. So if you've ever added something to the state, you know that set state will then fire off another render. You may not want to fire off another render, so you can have set state cancel itself by returning a null from an if-then block or something of that nature. Components can now return strings and numbers. That's new. It used to be that it had to return div or span, or in our case, React.fragment. But now you can just return strings or numbers if you want to as well, and avoid cluttering the DOM with extra divs and spans. You can also use custom DOM attributes. One that comes to mind is, say, iframe. So you can actually return that directly, and it will now work. And finally, we have the context API. Now, we won't be using the context API at all because we're using Redux, but the context API will act as a central storage place for data that you want to share between multiple components that are split throughout the application. And that way you don't have to do the prop drill down that we're so used to. Now, that is by no means a comprehensive list of what's new since React 16, just some of the things that are fairly important and that you'll probably end up working with. Now, what's new to Bootstrap 4? There's quite a few things, again, not a comprehensive list, but a big one is that they moved from less to Sass. Less is a way of generating CSS, Sass is a way of generating CSS, but Sass gives us more capabilities. And it's, in my opinion, easier to work with than less. It also gives us Sass variables for customizing themes and customizing the way that Bootstrap works, so we can add our own Sass variables and recompile Bootstrap to work with the new variables. It's got an improved grid system. Now it's based on what are called rems, which is a very precise measurement inside CSS. So we have a much better grid system. We have improved media queries, so it's more capable of detecting what it's being displayed on, whether it's standard desktop or if it's a mobile phone. That's been improved. It's also a 30% smaller footprint than older versions of Bootstrap, so it's always good to have less to download. And finally, there are plenty of JavaScript improvements, so it works better and faster. And again, not comprehensive, but a good list of what we can see in Bootstrap 4. So enough of me talking about React and Bootstrap. Let's get into some demos on how to update to the latest versions of Bootstrap and React. So to update the modules that we want to update, the first thing you have to do is open up a command prompt, or you could also do this in PowerShell. And you'll want to switch to the client app directory under your application directory. So mine is in projects /villainy /client app. And then to upgrade Bootstrap to 4.1.3, you'll do npm i bootstrap @4.1.3. You have to put that @4.1.3, otherwise it's just going to install the Bootstrap that you already have installed, which I believe is version 3.3.7. And we don't want that to happen. we've already got that. So what we're going to do is hit enter, and we'll let the Node Package Manager install Bootstrap 4.1.3 for us, and then we'll move into React. And now we're updated to Bootstrap 4.1.3. The next step is to update to React, and we'll put the @ symbol, and this time we want 16.4.2. We'll hit enter and we'll let React update. And I'm going to pause the recording here and we'll be right back when this is done. Now that that's updated to React 16.4.2, there's one other thing that we want to update, and that is React DOM. And that's also 16.4.2. So just put -DOM, hit enter, and we'll pause the recording and come back when it's complete. And that's all it takes to update to React 16.4.2 and Bootstrap version 4. The easiest way to tell in our application in Visual Studio that it's been updated is to update, or to rather open Visual Studio, which you can see I've done here, and we'll look for Bootstrap, which is on line 6, and that's set to version 4.1.3. The next line down, line 7, we see React is updated to version 16.4.2, and then a little further down on line 9, we see that React DOM is also updated to 16.4.2. So that's all it takes to update those 3 libraries. Let's move back into our slides and get a quick summary of what we've gone through. So again, a brief summary of what we've covered in this video. First, we upgraded to Bootstrap version 4.1.3, and then we updated to the latest version of React and React DOM, both of which are version 16.4.2. That's all there is to updating those 3 libraries. Next, we'll get into upgrading to Redux version 4. Look forward to seeing you there.